live here, 1:37 a.m. This is Hannibal from thehannibaltv.com, December the 6th, and I am about to do my weekly review of the main notes from the Wrestling Observer newsletter that have interested me. But tonight, let me just give a quick plug. There's a CWE Canada event in Ottawa at the Jim Durrell Center. The Blood Hunter is taking on former WCW star Juventud Guerrera. So if you're in the Ottawa area, check that out. We're going to be recording that event for the Hannibal TV. There's Ring of Honor stars on the show too, CWE stars. More information is at thehannibaltv.com. Tickets at the door. But to get into the Wrestling Observer news this week in WWE, there's less than 10 days before the TLC pay-per-view, and no matches have been announced yet. Starrcade was held as a network special just outside of Atlanta last Saturday night, and apparently there was no crowd given, so the attendance, the exact figure wasn't given. However, reports said there wasn't that many people at the event, so not a good turnout. And the big news of that event, as I already reported, was Bobby Lashley versus Rusev was supposed to be a feature match, and they didn't deliver that match, even though they advertised it. They just had Rusev interfere at the end of that match. And Ric Flair was also on that show, showing that he is well into his senior citizen years now. So I guess if he's not selling out on a special event called Starrcade just outside of Atlanta, his best years as a draw are behind him. And that's not saying anything against Ric Flair. I just think it's funny that, like, in the 90s, 20 years ago, WWE was making fun of WCW for using Hogan and Flair. And now they are real senior citizens. They weren't actually senior citizens in those years when WWE was saying they were. I think they were only in their 40s. But now they are real senior citizens, and WWE is using them. So I would love to have seen WWE in the 90s use Bruno Sammartino and Billy Graham for major segments, but that wasn't even a thought. So that just shows you how stuck they are these days. Arn Anderson did a Q&A as part of a big fan convention on the weekend. I think it was called Wrestlecade. And he said, after 17 years being with WWE, he always felt Vince McMahon still considered him a WCW guy. And apparently he was the agent in charge of 95% of John Cena's matches. And he feels that because John Cena liked using him as an agent, that's one of the reasons why he lasted so long there. He was fired apparently because Alicia Fox was allegedly drunk one night at a show, and he was the agent for a match, and he didn't notice that she was drunk or something. So I guess John Cena isn't really wrestling for WWE, so maybe if they ever bring John Cena back, which I'm sure they will, he's just becoming a movie star now, they'll probably bring Arn Anderson back as an agent for those matches, unless he's signed to AEW. But from what I understand, he's not actually signed to AEW at this point. Smiley Gamer says, love your channel. Thank you. C4P says, thoughts on the rumor that Kenny Omega is dating Dave Meltzer. Dave Meltzer has kids, I believe. Kenny Omega, there are rumors out there that he's gay or bisexual. I don't know enough about him to know if those rumors are true or not. Christopher DeJoseph, who is the guy that played Big Dick Johnson in WWE and was a writer for them from 2004 to 2010, is back with WWE. He had been working for Lucha Underground and MLW recently. Lance Storm has also returned to WWE as an agent. He started at the Raw tapings in Nashville. In WWE attendance notes, the November 22nd Chicago SmackDown had 7,800 fans in the building. The November 23rd Kalamazoo, Michigan WWE Raw and SmackDown Super Show. Yes, the brands do house shows together, so they're not really that separated. They drew 3,800. The 29th of November in Birmingham, Alabama, this past Friday, WWE drew 4,600 to the SmackDown 205 live tapings. Their biggest crowd, and I believe this was even bigger than their Survivor Series crowd or close to it, on November 30th in Mexico City, they had 11,000 fans. I'm surprised that they didn't do the Raw or SmackDown taping from Mexico City, because that would have really added a different flavor to it. And they 11,000 fans. They didn't even draw that, I don't believe, to the Raw reunion with Hulk Hogan from Tampa last summer. I think they had 10,500 to that. So that's a really good crowd for a house show. For the Raw in Nashville, Tennessee, they drew only 6,800 fans, which is more than AEW Dynamite drew in Nashville a little while ago when they ran there. The NXT tapings was the only NXT show recently, and the number for that was 400 fans. AEW the same night, December the 4th, in Champaign, Illinois, drew 4,100 fans, and I believe a lot of the seats in the top section of the arena were empty. I did watch the Chris Jericho clip from that show, so it wasn't anywhere near a sellout. In the Canadian ratings, AEW had less than 115,000 viewers. It was not in the top 10 for TV ratings. And of course, AEW did beat NXT in the ratings war this week. So AEW is winning 8-2, but there was only a 6,000 person margin. Krilling 876 is tipping me $5. Thanks. How does the money work when a promotion goes to a building like MSG? Do they rent the building, or does MSG pay the promotion to be there? Well, that's an easy question. Thank you for the $5 tip. Greatly appreciate that, by the way. Anyone that tips me in a fan Q&A when I'm doing shoot interviews, I'll always answer their question, or on one of these live streams. But to answer your question, they pay to rent MSG. There's a lot of prestige to rent MSG. And apparently, from what I understand, even when they fill MSG, a lot of companies do not actually profit. They just go there for the prestige. It's apparently very expensive to rent out. And UFC's doing multi-million-dollar gates. But like when WWE had the small crowd in there for SmackDown, I think they had 7,000 or something for SmackDown recently. They must have lost money on that. So I hope that answers your question. MSG does not pay for WWE. There are bought shows. WWE does sell shows, like Saudi Arabia is paying them to go there. People could buy house shows from them and put on house shows. But I don't think many people are doing that these days. But in theory, there'd be like a set price. So I know in TNA, back in 2007, when I was dealing with TNA, you could buy a TNA house show for $40,000. I believe that's not an exact quote, but I'm pretty positive that it was like $40,000 to buy a single TNA house show, because they did buy one in Oshawa, Ontario. I put on the first ever TNA Canadian tour in association with them. I promoted the 3 events in Quebec. I was also going to promote the Oshawa, Ontario one just outside of Toronto, but the arena bought the TNA show. So it has happened where arenas have bought shows. WWE will also give really bad deals to arenas. Sometimes they'll do splits, and other times, like Thunder Bay, Ontario, where WWE has come in the past, and Great North Wrestling promoted 2 events there. The first one had 1,800, the second one had over 3,000. But the arena managers at that arena told me that WWE stopped coming there, and the last time they had made an offer to that arena about coming there, the offer was WWE was only going to give them 25% of merchandise sales for that night. So they wouldn't pay any rent. They'd use the building, and the arena would only get 25% of merchandise sales. So I'm sure they do that deal with some arenas that really want them to come. Brandon Archer says, I look like Tyson Fury. Well, I'll take that as a compliment. And by the way, he recently donated a $9 million purse to charity, a charity that's close to him, I think, related to drug rehabilitation. So good for him. I don't know what he made from WWE. I heard one number I heard being thrown around for his Saudi Arabia appearances were $13 million. I don't know if that's true or not. Jay Smith says, I'm going to meet Hacksaw Jim Duggan next week when he comes to town with his comedy show. Well, check out my shoot interview with him on this channel. Back to the Wrestling Observer. I got distracted there. In Ring of Honor news, there's this whole big thing about Kelly Klein having an offer taken away from her because private information between her and Ring of Honor was released public, which if you did that with almost any company, they would definitely take away your contract offer. So I really don't have any sympathy for this girl. Apparently, she had an issue with allegedly being paid $20,000 by Ring of Honor in 2019 for wrestling 19 times. So that's over $1,000 a match on average, and she could have worked elsewhere, but Ring of Honor would have had first priority for bookings. So she was getting over $1,000 a match, and she could have taken other bookings. She was complaining about that. I don't consider that a bad deal. The most I've ever been paid for wrestling is WWE 400 Canadian. So $1,000 a match, man, I wouldn't complain about that. But apparently there was a $50,000 offer on the table for this girl before all this private information was leaked. And so basically $50,000, let's say she wrestled the same amount of times, 19 times, that's like $2,000 a match. And you barely have to work. So that's pretty easy in my opinion. Now they took away the contract offer. Well, she is supposedly still suffering from a concussion. But she's still being paid till the end of December. In theory, if she's medically cleared, she can wrestle before the end of December. I don't know the severity for a concussion. I've had concussions making $60 a night bouncing, getting punched in the head, attacked from behind, and have to go into work the next night. So someone making $1,000+ a match, who's been off already for a long time after a concussion, I really don't have much sympathy for her due to this leaked private information, which I work a regular job. If I leaked private information for my regular job online, I would probably be fired. So I don't have much sympathy for her at all. Also in Ring of Honor news, Sinclair recently bought many of Fox Sports Net's channels that used to be part of their package. So Ring of Honor is going to get a lot more exposure. And one more thing about Ring of Honor, I guess the last time this Kelly Klein wrestled was in Wales. They drew 150 fans to Wales. Do you think that company is making a lot of money on their shows? These wrestlers that they have, they're not drawing big crowds to the shows. So how much are they really worth, to be honest with you? That's my other thing. If you have 150 people at a show and you're making $1,000+ a match, consider yourself lucky, in my opinion. Their next pay-per-view is this Final Battle pay-per-view. It's unknown yet whether PCO is re-signed or Marty Scurll, but they're both appearing on this Final Battle pay-per-view. PCO is in a title match on that show, so obviously if he wins the Ring of Honor World title, likely he's re-signed with the company. If he doesn't, you'd probably see him in AEW. I know AEW was interested in him before, and obviously they could pay him a lot more than a company like Impact could pay him. So I would expect PCO to be staying with ROH or going to AEW. He won't tell me, so I don't blame him. In NWA news, as I've already reported, Stu Bennett, who used to be known as Wade Barrett, will be replacing Jim Cornette as a commentator. And by the way, thank you, Andrew Stovekin, for tipping me $2. You say thanks for the videos. You're the best. Thank you very much. Appreciate it. And you're watching this at 1:54 a.m. Eastern time, so thanks for. There's a lot of people watching. Thanks. So related to Wade Barrett taking over for Jim Cornette, the reason I find that unusual is because he's not known as a commentator, and he hasn't been in WWE since 2017, so he's not exactly a fresh name. I would say he would make a better champion than Nick Aldis. He is a much better known name than Nick Aldis, for sure. I would use him as a new champion over Nick Aldis any day. But apparently don't expect the NWA title to change anytime soon, because WrestleCade on the weekend, there was a little deal that they did with Nick Aldis and the Great Muta, where Nick Aldis put the NWA title in front of the Great Muta in what seemed to be alluding to a future match between the two. We know that Aldis didn't sign with AEW because he likes being NWA champion, so don't expect, even though their ratings are getting lower week after week after week, and that's a fact, don't expect them to have him lose the title anytime soon. Someone on here, Savage Beast, bad motherfucker, says it's almost 3 a.m. here. Eric Hansen, who's my favorite interview? There's too many. There's way too many to pick one. Zantastic says Jim Cornette cutting a heel promo on the AEW crowd. Yes, that would be great. They should. You know what? AEW, here is a piece of booking advice. You should let Jim Cornette come out and address the crowd. You will 100% beat NXT if you do that. 100%. You should just say, we're going to have a segment like they did with the Seth Rollins apology. AEW, you should do a segment. Jim Cornette addresses the AEW fans. That would be funny. Explosive Phoenix, what does AEW have to do to get ratings up? That's an example of what I think they have to do. And supposedly, the wrestlers really are not kayfabing at all. They're putting out lots of social media videos of wrestlers who are enemies being friends. So they should make it more realistic, but who am I to give multimillionaires advice? Thanks for the tip again, Krilling876. This is my last question. I have a big day tomorrow. I'm recording that CWE event. Nick's news, Krilling876 is actually tipping me and giving me news. He says Ric Flair just canceled an event in Queens. So I'm going to guess that's an appearance. So there's some news. Oh, Gringo's tipping me $3. So he says, thanks, bud. Is Travis Walton real? Thoughts? Well, Gringo, thanks for the tip. I appreciate it. Travis Walton, for any of you wrestling fans that don't know, I have a video that's almost 300,000 hits from my shoot interview trip to Phoenix that I did with Travis Walton, who the Hollywood movie Fire in the Sky was based on. And he has not been proven wrong in all of the years since that incident. So I do believe his story is real. Maybe not every little detail of the story, but I do believe he is telling the truth. Yes, Gringo. Another $5 tip from Baby Maharaja. What is your thoughts on former NWA champion Rob Conway? And any chance I will interview him on my channel? I'm sure I will interview Rob Conway. I did meet him at a WWE event. I actually wrestled Eugene that night on Heat in Las Vegas, and I remember he had spray tan, and he said I asked him if I could borrow his spray tan. See, all of my tryouts, I never realized there was actually an extra dressing room. Maybe all these times I was an extra and I changed in the main locker room. Maybe that's what caught me heat, why it took me 14 times to actually get signed. But anyways, I asked him if I could use his spray tan, and he says, now you're going to get the con man tan. So if you're ever wondering why I look so tanned in that Eugene match, it is the con man tan. And yes, I would definitely interview him for sure. So thanks for the tip, baby Maharaja. Good night, everybody.